All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Vibrant. This is Mark, or Groover, and I'm the self-proclaimed best player in Adeptus Titanicus, and Mark is a developer. Anyways, I'm gonna do an interview with him, ask him some questions. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Mark.
Hello everyone, it's Mark here from Membrane Studios.
Oh shit! I spilled something.
uh,
All right. False alarm. Okay. All right. So how it's gonna work, everyone, is I'm gonna ask some questions of my own, and then I'm gonna go on to Scene Forms and answer. We'll have Mark answer those questions that are on there. Anyways, so my first question is, how long have you been working on Dominus?
okay, well, it's basically as Dominus as in its current form. We've probably been working on it for about a year and a half, maybe two years. But we actually started this project in a different form, probably going back almost 3 years now. And basically, as the prototypes rolled out and as the game basically evolved, it changed direction a couple of times. It changed name a few times even. And it is now Adeptus Titanicus Dominus.
All right. Uh, did you meet your sales targets, if you had any?
Uh, I can't comment on sales targets. I'm sorry.
All right.
What I can say is things are going pretty well, and we're very happy with how we're going. But yeah, I don't think the powers that be would be happy with me if I started talking about specific targets and stuff like that.
Yeah, just hoping you're not turning into Dawn of War 3. Anyways,
Yeah.
next question. Do you have any plans
Yes.
for progression systems, achievements, leaderboards, anything like that?
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, I think those things are even called out on the Steam store page about for the first major update. We're going to basically the first major update's real focus is close combat and the stress mechanics, which is for those who are familiar with fourth edition, the 6mm fourth edition tabletop rules. That the tabletop rules have the concept of blast markers, which is how they record how much stress the units under. So we'll be bringing that system in for Dominus with the first major update, along with the close combat and firefight rules from the tabletop. And I think in the same list is where we start to implement achievements and the progression system. But bear in mind, the progression system in skirmish and the scenario play won't have the same sort of impact as it will ultimately have in the campaign. And it's really geared towards the campaign play and also multiplayer. So the idea is that as you play more games obviously in the campaign, but also in multiplayer, you'll unlock new stuff. I've sort of referred to it in the Steam store pages as loot drops, but that turned out to be something
Yeah,
that
yeah, I heard about
set a
that.
few people off. Like, yeah, a few people got fully triggered by that. Like, which I totally understand because I hate loot boxes as well. But yeah, just for the record, the loot drop that I was talking about is a progression system within the game where you unlock new stuff as you play,
So would
and
these
it's
things,
not.
sorry to
Yeah, go
cut you
ahead.
off, but would these things
That's
affect
right.
gameplay or would they be like cosmetics?
No, they will affect gameplay because the idea is that they're yeah, like for example, okay, so in the Warlord you've got now you've got your volcano cannons, you've got your plasma cannons, you've got your apocalypse launchers, and you've got your laser blasters and all that sort of stuff. If you can imagine a game where you start off where you only have access to say a Gatling blaster, one Gatling blaster, one volcano cannon, one laser blaster, and one apocalypse launcher, right? So that's all you can take. But then you play your first game, and you get a loot drop of maybe another volcano cannon, and boom, suddenly you can modify your warlord to add that volcano cannon on if you choose to. And then you play another game, and then you might unlock a plasma cannon. Ah, great! Now my next warlord, I'm gonna put on plasma cannon and that sort of thing. So that it's that's not exactly how it'll work, but that's hopefully giving you the idea of what I mean by a loot drop.
All right, that'll work.
Yeah, it's the idea is it just gives you options as you play the campaign, gives you both options for how you configure your warlords, but sorry, your titans, but also replayability because the next time you play the campaign, you might get a different series of loot drops, right? So you might unlock different things at different times, and that'll influence how that particular campaign plays out, but also it's just very aligned, if you like, with the tabletop, where different games against different people, you could take different configurations of units and just see how they go, and it's a bit like that.
All right. Are any of these things that I unlock, are they going to be like things that are almost like objectively better than other things I already have? Like if I am
No,
like,
no,
let's say,
no.
maxed out and I play versus a newbie, would I have a
Yeah,
distinct
yeah.
advantage over him?
No, no, you won't. No, because and that's the beauty of the fourth edition rules. And it's, to be honest, it's the major reason. Sorry, early in the morning, can't speak properly. The major reason we went with the fourth edition tabletop rules is its balance. The fourth edition rules are really, really finely tuned and well balanced. Not just because of the work that Games Workshop did on the game originally, and when Jarvis Johnson and those guys were writing it, but the community picked up those rules and ran with it well after it was no longer sort of a core title, and continued to hone the balance in the game over the years. So today the game is exceptionally well balanced, and we're trying to match that one for one, that what we're calling true to source, precisely for the reason that we want to benefit from balance that the community and the Games Workshop and the community created all those years ago, because it still stands today as probably the most balanced system that the Games Workshop has ever released. So I suppose a specific answer to your question is, like, given the examples I gave before, a volcano cannon costs more in points than, say, a laser blaster. And
Okay, yeah.
yeah. So that points cost, when you put it on your Titan, increases the Titan's points cost equal to whatever the weapon was. So if you want to put nothing but volcano cannons on your warlord, which you can't actually do because the carapace weapons can't be volcano cannons, but for argument's sake, let's say you could, then let's say it's 100 points per weapon, and I'd have to check exactly how many points they're worth, but so that's 400 points just in weaponry that you're putting on top of the warlord. And in the maniple builder, as you're building up the Titans, you'll see the points rise as you put things on, and rise and fall and that sort of stuff. So in that regard, I suppose it has similarities to other gaming systems, where as you put on weapons or armor or whatever, you see the in some games it'll be weight, or in other games it'll be some sort of other distribution factor, or power might be being soaked up. In the context of Adeptus Titanicus Dominus, it's points. So yeah, any tabletop player is going to be familiar with that, and anyone who's played Warhammer 40,000 on the tabletop, for example, will know exactly how that sort of system works. But for those who are not familiar with that sort of system, all these, pretty much all these Games Workshop tabletop games, they work on a points system. The idea being that 100 points in one faction is equal to 100 points in another faction, even though the two factions play completely different.
Okay. All right. That works. Next question. Because the game has a little bit of a small player base. Do you have plans to help bring in new players, things like sales, free weekends, etc.?
Yeah, we've got. Well, we haven't sort of gotten that far into, like, say, free weekends or any of that sort of stuff. We're so early in launch at the moment that the focus really is right now on just getting the game as well honed as we can, so the play experience now is good and all that sort of thing. Our focus is then going to shift more on the marketing front as we get closer to actual full release. We're actually, while we're in early access, we're happy with organic growth, and we're happy with the word of mouth we're getting. But we do marketing efforts and things like that right now, but those efforts are time consuming, and we're a team of two. So any time we spend putting together ads or whatever is time we're not working on the game. We're just trying to maximize our time on the game right now. But yeah, once we're closer or even in full release, and have more time to spend on things like marketing, yeah, absolutely, we'll be doing things like free weekends. We've also got big, that would be in concert with Valve, by the way. I can't speak for them, but yeah, that sort of thing is definitely available to us. And we have also got big plans for things we want to do in multiplayer, things like organized tournament weekends and stuff like that, where people compete in multiplayer with a specific goal, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. All right, that's cool. Okay, next one. This is what I'm really hopeful for, but I think I know the answer. Do you have any plans to bring in more than two-player game modes, 2v2s, free-for-alls, anything like that?
We certainly have the ability to do that, but right now with the player base such as it is, it's probably not feasible because we don't want to fracture the player base at all. Right now, what we've got is a system where anyone who goes looking for a game, if there's a game to be had, they'll find it because the first person in hosts the game, the next person in joins the game, and
Yeah.
so if you've got 10 people coming in, all 10 people will get a game. Whereas in a system where you've got options for how games are set up, it means you might have 10 people come in and none of them get a game because none of them want to join the type of game that's right there, or the person who's hosting it is waiting for their friend Bob who hasn't joined yet, or whatever. So
Yeah.
we're just trying to maximize the fun that the player base can get right now, early on with the player base such as it is.
All right.
But yeah. Look, I think there is a longer answer to your question, which is, will we do that sort of stuff downstream? Yeah, absolutely. If if we get to the point where we're happy that the player base will support that, or even if we just get to the point where, enough people sort of clearly want that they'll go out of their way to organise themselves to get on with their friends, then we can definitely bring that sort of stuff in.
Okay. Awesome. Next question. Will the campaign be co-op like Dawn of War 2 or Halo Wars?
It's not planned to be co-op right now, but I know there are people who love co-op campaign. And the difference between co-op campaign and the multiplayer that we've got right now is actually not that vast. So it's definitely technically possible. It's not on the roadmap right now, but as with everything in the game, we basically have we reserve the right to change our minds policy. So if a cool idea comes up that we haven't thought of, that is just so cool that we think it needs to come in, then we change our minds and we bring it in. So co-op could be one of those ideas where we go, yeah, that's pretty cool, let's do that.
All right. Awesome. All right. Do you have plans to add any new Titans, like full new Titans, or any other race Titans or anything like that?
Right now there are only 3 Titans. There is in terms of the Imperial class, if you like. So there's the Warhound, the Reaver, and the Warlord, which are already in the game. In terms of other factions, I can't comment on any of that sort of plan along future lines. But if other factions were to enter the game, then obviously other factions have their own equivalent of Titans. Some factions they don't have Titans at all, right? Or don't have any equivalent to a Titan.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of factions that do. You've got your Orcs with their Gargants, you've got your Tyranids with their Bio-Titans and so on. So basically, much of this is potentially available to us, but we need to finish the game with the existing roadmap first, and then we can look at things like expanding into those areas. And to a large extent, that'll depend on what the player base is asking of us and what we see people demanding. Because some people will want to see new factions in there, other people will want to see I don't know what else what other people might want to see, but certainly where I'm aware that new factions is high on the list that people would like to see. We have not that fact is not lost upon us.
All right. Next question. Do you plan to add Chaos single player, and will it come with its own campaign and scenarios?
Okay, so we haven't announced our plans regarding the campaign just yet, so I can't answer that specifically. But we're certainly aware there's a lot of people who want to be able to play as Chaos. So again, that's not something it's not something we've missed. We are well aware that's key. I just can't talk about the specifics of the campaign at this time. I'm sorry.
All right, that's fine. Last one from me. Who composed your soundtrack, and where can I purchase it or download it?
Okay. Yeah. So Evan, our composer, Evan, he's a fantastic composer. We're so lucky to have found him. He basically he's a contract composer, right? So he doesn't work for Member as such. He's just done the soundtrack for us in this case. But he absolutely nailed it. He just really nailed the vibe of 40K, and we're extremely happy with the soundtrack. We are in discussions with Evan at present about releasing the soundtrack just on its own as DLC. That's not something we can just do off our own bat. Off our own bat. We don't have the rights to do that. We've got the rights to include it in our game, but that's pretty much it. So we need to basically get his approval and him happy to see a DLC release. And basically, I think the way that'll work is that whatever money that raises would pretty much go to Evan for struggling artists need to eat too.
All right, yeah. So, by the way, if the soundtrack ever does become available in any form, I'll pin a comment down below. Anyways, let's go to the Steam forums comments. All right, so first we have Shadows FM. He asks, "How long do you plan to work on Dominus? How do you know it's finished in your eyes?"
Yeah, that's a really good question because particularly in this day and age, when are things really finished? I actually try not to use the word finished when I'm discussing the full release of Dominus, and I do that very deliberately. It's because they're often not ever finished. In fact, it might have been yourself. Someone shared a quote with me the other day that I've heard before, which is that an artist never finishes their work; they just abandon it. And that may sound horrible, but I think fundamentally it's true. There are great games out there that could always have been better and could always have been better and better and better.
Dollar three.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So but for one reason or another, the artists involved abandon it when they get to the point that they're happy enough. And I think that's probably going to be the case here. We'll eventually get to the point where we're happy enough that we have done justice to the 40k universe, that we have done justice to the original gameplay of the tabletop, and that we've done justice to the expectations of the player base. So when we get to that point where we're happy enough, that's probably when we would abandon Dominus. Until then, that's so far in the future, I can't even begin to predict when that might be. But we will. The first order of business is to complete the game as per the current roadmap, which is what we've basically got agreed with the powers that be. So once we've completed that, that's when the game is quote unquote full release and complete, but not necessarily finished, right? Because as we go through this journey, I know that there's going to be all sorts of ideas that come out of the woodwork, of things that we might add into the game, things we might change about the game. Just things that some things will be sort of a small shift to the left or the right or whatever, and other changes will be monumental. We're basically prepared for all those things. We were prepared for that going into this journey. We knew early access would reveal all sorts of things that we hadn't thought of. Some of those things are going to be things that we've done that are stupid. Other things are going to be things that we've done that we just didn't think of, a better alternative, and then the better alternative will turn up because some player in our community will be like, "Hey, have you thought about X?" We'll be like, "Oh shit, no, we didn't think about X. That's a cool idea. Let's do that." And then we'll change direction accordingly. So the long and the short of it is that this idea of when the game is finished and when the game is complete, when the game is full release versus now, it's a bit of a movable feast, right? And I sort of try to make this point on the Steam store page that we think we're going to be in early access for somewhere between 6 and 12 months right now. But if we are getting feedback that we need to make significant changes, and then we go about making those significant changes, that sort of thing can derail the time frame significantly, right? So like I can give you some concrete examples if you like. We've taken a lot of feedback about the variant system that we've got now, where we're bringing in warlords with specific configurations, rather than just letting people configure their warlords. Titans, I should say. But instead of letting people configure their Titans the way they want, we're giving specific variations and constraining them along the lines of those variants. Now, we did that for good reason, which is that the points differentials is not necessarily always exactly aligned to what weapons the thing's carrying. Sometimes you're going to have a Titan that's carrying one configuration of weapons that might be just from the pure math equal in value to another Titan, but on the battlefield those two may not have exactly equal value to you as a player. So the point system there, can be problematic. So we went down the variance path so that we would have the ability to tweak between two different variants that had ostensibly the same points cost. We might, but one was superior to the other in terms of performance. We could up the points on that one just for that variant. But the community is not really, I think, looking for that level of balance. What they're looking for is the ability to customize their stuff, and they want to be able to choose what they want, and they want to have a bit more flexibility, and they want to have choice, right? So we've heard that, and we're looking very hard right now at can we change our direction now at this point in the game and bring in a more customized system where we also manage to capture the points tweaking that I was talking about before. And we think we've got a good path there that is available to us to do that. We now need to have a look at what the actual impact of making that change would be on not just now, but downstream. We need to have a conversation with the powers that be to make sure that they're happy if we make that change, and then we can make a decision as to whether or not we're going to do it. But if we do that change, then it means it will have a knock-on effect of time. So that's why I've been deliberately a little vague in terms of how long we think things will take. 6 to 12 months. That's a fairly big window. It could be 12 to 18, as far as I know, depending on how many of those sorts of changes come along, and that where we decide that the community is right and we're wrong, and make a change accordingly. But so we think it'll be about 6 to 12 months right now. But to be honest with you, we're prepared to take as long as it takes to get it right. We have the advantage of being a really small micro studio, right? There's only the two of us. We do not have the massive overheads of bigger developers, right? There are developers like Creative Assembly. I think I heard somewhere that they've got like somewhere between 100, 200 artists, maybe more, working on games, right? So that's a massive overhead for a company to carry between releases of games, right? Because they get a game release, you get a nice cash revenue increase from your release, but then you've got to carry that until the next release, and you've got your overheads of whoever you've got employed. We only have the two of us. So we have a significant advantage in that we can continue to carry that pretty much for as long as we need to make sure the game is what it needs to be. So we have this thing's Dominus is absolutely our baby. We're not going to be abandoning Dominus before it's finished. There's that word, finished. We're not going to be abandoning Dominus before we are happy that it is good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just to clarify, you don't really have like a publisher or anything, right? You just kind of...
No, we don't.
Independent. No, the only thing you really have that's close to publisher is GW.
Yeah, well, GW's correct, and they're not a publisher. We are pretty much the definition of garage band indie. We're just the two of us. This is Dominus is really a labour of love for us. Because we've both been playing 40k for. I've been playing it since I was 14. So that's 30 years ago. I think I started playing in 1987. So I think that's when Rogue Trader was first released. The universe just grabbed me and has never let me go. I've just loved 40k for that long. I've still got my, for those who are old men like me who remember the plastic Marines that first came out with Rogue Trader, I've still got my plastic Marines, and I still play with them on the tabletop. They've got a pride of place for nostalgic reasons, even though the paint jobs are crap. We've done this as indie, and we've done it precisely because a game this niche is not going to appeal to a lot of publishers. There are some publishers who probably would have been interested, but we didn't yet have the pedigree, if you like, to really engage at that level. We needed to get a few more runs on the board, a few more points on the board in terms of delivering projects and showing that we're real contenders, and then a publisher might take us more seriously. So that might be something that we look at for, say, Dominus 2 or something like that, where maybe if we can engage a publisher with a bigger marketing budget and maybe a bigger development budget, have a much more significant scope than what we've done here for Dominus. But for the two of us, we're happy with the scope we've got. We're happy with the we're happy with the what we've delivered so far, and that we can continue to deliver something at a what we think is pretty decent quality for decent bang for buck.
All right. Another question from Shadow SM. He says, "I like hearing sort of how people got into the universe. How did you get introduced to Warhammer?"
Oh, okay. Well, I kind of just did that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well,
I wanted to stop you there, but I didn't want to be rude.
Yeah, sorry. Well, yeah, look, I literally walked into my local game store when I was 14 with a mate of mine. His name is Bards. Hey, Bards, if you're listening. So yeah, we walked into our local game store and just looking around, and there was a book there. Great big, hardcover book. It was pretty much A4 size. So larger than most of the game's books there. Pulled it out, had a look at it, and could tell. And the picture on the front was of these space marines in power armor, desperately making their last stand against an unseen foe that was closing in around them in the smoke and the haze. And that image with their blue power armor and their crimson fists, and someone holding an orc head over his head and bolters blazing, I just went, that looks cool. So I bought the book, bought a box of Plastic Marines, which I'm pretty sure at the time cost me all my pocket money, and made my way home, and we put the Marines together, and we basically halved that box of Marines between us, myself and Bards, and then we made a game table out of paper mache and painted it and flocked it and all that sort of stuff, and before you know it, we were hooked, and here we are 30 years later.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Sorry, I didn't mute my mic for a second. But yeah, I heard everything you said. And cool. Another question from Shadow is, he asked a lot of questions. What have you learned from previous projects that helped you in creating this game?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, I mean, beyond the technical, because obviously you learn a lot of hard technical lessons as you go. I mean, Dominus is not our first game, right? We've made a number of games before this, most of which were mobile. But we basically, the biggest lessons we've learned, I think, are to do with what works in a computer game context and what doesn't. And so we've tried to do true to tabletop before, and we were a bit too slavish to the tabletop. And because of it worked. Like, it was a good game. It was fun. It was kind of like, I think in the reviews we were getting like 7 out of 10, but it was too tabletop, right, and too dense because of that. So people who were not tabletop players just could not get into it. They couldn't get some of the conventions that are for a tabletop player are obvious and clear, but it's not obvious or clear on a computer game. So we, this time around, we've avoided all the mistakes we made last time. We've avoided all of those, and made all new mistakes. So, but no, we basically learned some hard lessons there. But for an example, the way in the game right now, we've got this system where you choose where you're going to move to. You choose your target. So that's 2 clicks, and then you commit the order and off you go. And we basically, everything that you see happening between the 2 points of the move and the shooting that you do is impacting what will finally be recorded, mostly through the time on target mechanic, where it's taking account of how much cover, for example, the target had during the movement. So that's not directly taken from the tabletop, right? That's how we have chosen to interpret and bring in the cover rules from the tabletop game. So it is still the cover rules, and it has the same net effect in the game because we wanted to be really careful to make sure we didn't break the balance inadvertently. But it is not specifically exactly how the tabletop works. It does look cooler. It looks much cooler, and it's a bit more easy to follow, to understand. Oh, I see my shots are being impacted by that building, and not hitting the target. So that means I know that target's probably going to benefit from a cover save from this. Or when you're doing your attack planning, you can see the lines of fire. I can see my green line is just touching on that mountaintop there. Okay, so I know that's going to be interrupted. If it's going to be interrupted there, it's quite possibly going to be interrupted as it moves. Again, I'm probably going to have a time on target penalty from that. So that sort of level of what's the word, feedback, if you like, player feedback, is really probably one of the biggest mistakes we made previously that we're trying to fix this time.
Adeptus Titanicus Dominus, now with all new mistakes.
Exactly, it's a great tagline.
All right, 2 more questions for Shadow SM. First, so is it just the 2 of you? Will you ever plan on hiring any more people to help you with this project?
Oh man, how much would I love to have people help me with this project? Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, our intent here is to grow. Our intent here is definitely to grow. Will we get the chance to grow and benefit from that growth during the time frame we've talked about here with Dominus? Probably not. Although I don't honestly know. So for the foreseeable future, it'll just be the 2 of us. But yeah, we have every intention of bringing in people to help with art in particular, because Glenn currently does everything you see in the game, and I can't even begin to tell you how time consuming it is to put together those models. For anyone who's sort of really gotten in close to the Titans, they had a look at the level of detail in there. That's the sort of level of detail that Glenn's happy with, right? So anything less than that, he's not happy, and he goes back and he works it until he gets to the point where the attention to detail is right, and that it looks right, and that it looks the way it should look, and all that sort of stuff. So that takes time. So if we probably the first people we'll bring on would be artists to help Glenn, and to basically follow his vision as to how everything should look and feel. Things like but the battlefields that are in there now, for example, Glenn's they're already on his to-do list to rework those, to add much more detail to them, more stuff, more battlefield stuff, right? But we've got other problems we need to fix before we get to that point. Things like there's the buildings right now. There's a performance issue that's going on in the buildings. So Glenn's looking at redoing all the buildings, how the buildings are put together to make them a bit more performant. Glenn's also modeling right now the next weapon system that we're going to add with the next small update. That'll be adding just having a new weapon system obviously means a lot more variants become available. So that's obviously of key importance as well. People have asked for things like knights to come into the game. That's really cool, and we can actually bring knights into the game because they're within the IP constraints of Adeptus Titanicus, no problem. But it takes time. So even though we can and probably will bring knights in before too long, exactly how long, can't say, because right now it's only Glenn doing all of that. So if we were able to bring in another artist, even just one more, that would work under Glenn's Glenn's guidance and his vision. That's hopefully going to halve the time it takes for us to get new artworks out. So yeah, it's really critical for us to grow, to bring in more people, to achieve that sort of time advantage, if nothing else.
All right, awesome. A little question from me now. So you said Glenn's the artist. What role are you exactly, just to clarify that?
My role is game designer and code monkey. So right. I do, So I basically designed the game. Although we don't really have these sorts of discrete roles, because everything you see in the game is really the combination of Glenn and I doing stuff together. And like, what do you think? Is that cool? Yeah, that's cool. Oh, nice. Okay, so so basically I'm the writer and he's the artist. But we do a lot of stuff in tandem.
All right, awesome. Just make sure to clarify that. Okay, one last question for Shadow SM. He says, what year / millennium does this setting take place?
Yeah. That's cool. It's I understand the confusion too. It is actually the 41st. It's 40K. So Adeptus Titanicus originally was actually set in the Horus Heresy, but our game is set in the year 40,000. Some of the reason for that is historical for where the project started, but also just 40K is where our hearts lie. You know, we love we really like Horus Heresy as well. You know, for different reasons, but 40K, that's where we started. If you know what I mean, that's our bread and butter.
All right, awesome. Next is from Matthias. Is there any plan to introduce ground troops, armor, tanks, artillery, in the style of a Space Marine tabletop game, and Epic Armageddon, etc.?
Yeah, it would be cool, wouldn't it? I can't comment.
It would be cool, but a little hard.
Yeah. It would. Well, it's. Yeah, I just can't. Sorry, I can't comment.
Yeah,
I would love to be able. I'd love to be able to answer that question in full, but all I can say right now is I completely understand where he's coming from. That would be very cool.
All right, and the last question on the Steam forums. I'm going to butcher some names here, so forgive me. All right, it's from Grimbo. Any chance of adding... Okay, here we go. Axtus or Searstus class knights? I know I butchered that, but... Or just the whole faction in general.
Yeah. Okay, so
choice.
look, we definitely have the ability to add in new factions. We have the ability to add in knights specifically. But we can't comment at this point about, or we can't discuss anything we haven't formally announced. So that while we have the ability to bring things in, I don't want to give people the impression that we've inadvertently promised that we're going to do it. So we certainly have the ability to bring in new factions and including knights. I'm not sure though if knights would be better off as their own faction or just additional unit choices within the existing factions. I think probably the latter, because normally when we're talking about the 6mm tabletop game, normally when you see knights, they're in support of the Titans and larger forces, because at this scale, while knights are very, very powerful at the 28mm scale, at this scale, when you're talking about, you've got another force that might have like 5 warlords. A Titan really is not that tough. They're not that tough and they're not that powerful. So they're handy, kind of in the same way that warhounds are handy. For different purposes though. They're more good for holding objectives, right? So let's say your warlords wade forward. You've got your reavers who move just that little bit quicker and maybe secure a couple of objectives. You might then use knights to move up in support of the reaver, hold the objective so the reaver can move on to the next one, and then if your opponent was to bring in a warhound or something on a quick recon mission to try and grab your objective, ninja your objective out from under you, you've got your knights there holding the objective and contest to keep the warhound at bay. So like a formation of say 3 knights against 1 warhound, that would be a pretty tough battle. So the warhound might think twice in that circumstance. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, it's pretty much it for the questions. One thing is that if anyone has any questions that were unanswered or like questions that they didn't ask in time, I'm going to leave a link to the Discord in the description. You can ask them there if you just add Groover. And also Steam forums, he replies a lot. And that's it for the interview. So I'm going to stop the recording.
Great.